Midnight on Earth podcast with your host, Jake Weaver. Engineered by Cedric Swan. Hey everybody, we are back with another episode of Midnight on Earth. I'm your host, Jake Weaver, and we are here to bring you more knowledge, more light, and more love, and more historical lectures from people that have graduated from this dimension. They're over there helping us, hopefully. I'm sure they are, depending on the person. And they are there helping us. And while they were here in this dimension, they did some incredible work. And their work deserves to be recognized. These people, that work, it shows up in a lot of different ways, different people, but this time we are going to be exploring the work of Rosemary Ellen Guiley. She was a highly respected metaphysical researcher. She had over 65 books. Incredible woman. She was out there as a voice for so many years, and she graduated to the next dimension. Maybe we can do some paranormal research into her now. She graduated into the next dimension in 2019. So she's here with us today, though, in spirit, in a paranormal, supernatural, macrocosmic way. But before we dive into her world and that lecture, I need you to do something for me. Follow me on Instagram at midnight_on_earth. That is the address. You can follow me there. Spotify, Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, wherever you go to get your podcasts, click that button that connects us so you know exactly what's going on. When you get those notifications to your device and you're there and you're wondering what to do with your time, something that you can do that's educational, you get that notification, boom, you're with us. And most importantly, of course, tell a friend. Tell someone that you know that loves these type of podcasts. You know these people, you know their frequency, you know their energy. You know what we are doing here. So bring them here. midnightonearth.com. I don't want to forget to mention our incredible sponsor. Usually she is here with us on our lecture episodes. She could not make it this week, but she's here in spirit and she shows up as a sponsor. VitalForceHerbs.com is the website for her company, Vital Force Herbs. She created the most incredible herbal blends using all organic, locally sourced herbs, wild crafted in some cases, and they're designed using her incredible knowledge. She's really focused on herbalism and she knows so much about it, and she just really never stops studying, honestly, as we all should never stop studying anything. Should always be studying something, just putting information in that's going to help us grow. She does that with a lot of different things, including herbalism, right? So all of that knowledge has made it into the design of those blends that really address wellness situations that you might find yourself in. Grounded, calm, deepest dreams, resilient heart, immune defense. There's so many more. And we have a discount code, Midnight, MIDNIGHT, that gets you 30% off. Free shipping on any order, including just one bottle. So if you wanted to try it, you can try it, and then you can report back to us for literally pennies. I mean, it's kind of mind-blowing that this offer is there. So take advantage of it. Go there, vitalforceherbs.com, discount code midnight, 30% off, free shipping. Just remember, when you support her, when you support Vital Force Herbs, You're supporting this podcast. Okay. Now we're going to learn about Rosemary Ellen Guiley. Now, I remember listening to her, and I'm sure I've read a couple of her books over the years. She's been out there again as a voice, as a researcher, as someone that was shining the light on these things. And now she's over there as the light, hopefully helping us evolve, giving us some support from that dimension. But let's just read her bio. How about that? Let's read the bio, just like any other guest. And actually, this is a good time to chime in with this. If you have not listened to a lecture episode before, this is what we do. We listen to these rare lectures from people that have graduated this dimension, because if they are still here, then I should be able to find them. I should be able to conduct an interview with them in real time. Unfortunately, so many people that I love, that I've learned from, have graduated, and I cannot have a one-on-one, three-dimensional interview with them. However, word is out on the other side, and so many souls, light beings, want to get on this show. And the synchronicities and the various things that happen that help me find these lectures is a podcast episode unto itself. But I will just say that the people that we find, these lectures, they're just incredible. And this is the first time that we have covered a Rosemary Ellen Guiley lecture or just her thoughts on various things. So I do want to read her bio. So here we go. Rosemary Ellen Guiley was one of the most respected and prolific voices in the field of metaphysical research, with over 65 books to her name, covering a vast range of subjects like the paranormal, spiritual realms, dream work, angels, demons, and the mystical nature of reality itself. Her work bridged the gap between scholarship and personal exploration, weaving together deep research with field investigations and interviews as she sought to understand the hidden dimensions that shape our experience of the world. Rosemary was not only a writer, but also an active investigator, spending countless nights in haunted locations and spiritual hotspots, always driven by a profound curiosity about the unseen forces around us. She served on the boards of several major paranormal organizations and appeared frequently on television and radio, sharing her insights with a wide audience hungry for understanding the mysteries of life and beyond. Rosemary approached her work with both rigor and an open heart, believing that the exploration of the unknown was essential to expanding human consciousness. Though she passed away in 2019, her legacy continues to inspire truth seekers, mystics, and researchers worldwide, reminding us that the boundaries of reality are far wider than we often imagine, and that her voice still echoes in the conversations we carry forward today. And that's why we're listening to her. This is why she is going to be talking about the Djinn. She talks about a lot of different things. In fact, she has so many books covering so many topics, but this lecture specifically kind of focuses on these creatures. Because she had a foundation. She served on other boards, the Foundation for Research into Extraterrestrial Encounters. She was an accomplished speaker. My God, I have listened to several of her lectures over the years, just like we're going to do now. She has an incredible depth of knowledge. I wish I could have connected with her. She graduated just before the podcast started in 2020. But the Djinn is what she's talking about today. This is a lecture from 2017 about the Djinn, which are ancient supernatural beings from Middle Eastern and Islamic tradition Most people think of them as like the genies in the lamp, but in their original form, they're considered to be like a parallel race to humans, created from, quote, smokeless fire, according to the Quran, where humans were created from clay and angels from light. What's fascinating is that they occupy a kind of middle space, not entirely physical, not entirely spiritual, and they live in a hidden world alongside ours called the Alam al-Ghaib, or the unseen realm. This is in the Quran. And they have free will, they're emotional, there are benevolent, neutral, and malevolent ones, supposedly. Rosemary was really fascinated by the Djinn because it seemed to explain certain paranormal phenomena that don't fit neatly into categories like ghosts, demons, or extraterrestrials. Shadow people, unexplained voices, sudden manifestations. These are sometimes theorized to be the work of Djinn, moving through the veil between their world and ours. So like not angels, not demons, not spirits, some other thing, according to the Islamic tradition. So we're going to learn about the Djinn today, not the alcoholic drink. I don't drink alcohol personally. If you do, that's okay. That's your choice. I do smoke cannabis. Don't drink gin. That was a very interesting tie-in. It's not even really that funny. But we're going to learn about this. So I'm not sure who the interviewer is, but it's from 2017. And this is just interfacing with Rosemary's personality. So we can just kind of learn from her, feel her energy, feel her vibration, understand in a way what she is about and what her contribution was, which was so massive. So we're missing Bryn Anderson today of Vital Force Herbs, but we are together, myself and you and Rosemary. I'm taking notes, and after the lecture, we will reconvene. We'll talk about what we learned and talk about the things that she said. So stick around till the end, and I will see you there. Here is Rosemary Ellen Guiley, February 14th, 2017. And in this recording, though this is my first time listening to it as well, I did notice there are breaks in the recording where she moves to different subjects related to the subject previously. It's all interrelated. It's beautiful. You're going to absolutely love this. The Djinn. Who are the shadow people? Here we go.
So Rosemary, just tell us about yourself and your work and what you do.
I'm a paranormal researcher and investigator. This really has been a life path for me. I've been interested in these topics since I was a kid. And professionally, I have a background as a journalist, which has been great training for the kind of work that I do. I've been full-time in the field since 1983. And I research and investigate hauntings, cases of spirit attachments. Sometimes they're dark entity activities. I get into ufology, ETs, UFOs, mysterious creatures, also into spiritual development, past lives, reincarnation, dream work. All of these topics are interrelated. The shadow people, I believe, are a form taken by Djinn, and it took me a while to get to this conclusion. I started researching shadow people in depth in 2004, and after a few years of intense investigation, I concluded that shadow people are a form taken by Djinn. This research started as a result of getting a lot of emails and inquiries in a short period of time from people describing pretty much the same kind of experience, a bedroom invasion by a dark entity that looked like a tall man wearing a cape or a coat and often with a hat. These were terrifying encounters for people, and they were wondering, what is this entity? What does it want? How do I make it go away?
So what are the different types of shadow people that people encounter?
There are different types of shadow people. There is what I call a core experience. And this is the bedroom invasion, where a person wakes up, usually in the middle of the night, to find in their doorway or by the bed what they first might think is a person. It's a very dark silhouette that looks like a man about 6 to 7 feet tall, wearing a coat or a cape and often a hat. There are no features. Sometimes people see eyes, but usually they're featureless. And these figures radiate an intense amount of malevolence. People feel very frightened, like they're going to be attacked. Sometimes the entity doesn't attack, it just observes, which is quite terrifying. And sometimes it does attack by jumping on the person in bed and attempting to choke or suffocate them. The odd thing about these entities is that they seem to have mass when they want, and they seem to be able to be paraphysical when they want. That is, if they reach out and attack someone, the individual feels like they're being assaulted by a very muscular, heavy human being. But when these entities want to disappear, they will go through walls, windows, they will disappear as smoke, vapor, they will slide under the bed, go into the closet where they disappear. So they seem to have the capability of being physical in our realm, and yet they can defy the laws, natural laws of physics at the same time. I wondered for a long time, why do these entities need to wear hats? And usually the hats are crazy hats. They're out of fashion, they're weird looking, they range from old-fashioned stereotype detective hats to floppy hats almost like fedoras, stovepipe hats like the Victorians wore, cowboy hats. Why does an entity need to wear a hat? Well, there are two possible reasons. And one is that these are intelligent entities. They are very smart. They know exactly how to engage with people. They know what they want. And they may have figured out that their silhouette looks a little more terrifying, or maybe even a lot more terrifying, if they're wearing a hat. Hats are often symbols of authority. But I think that it has more to do with how they shapeshift, because the Djinn have really no physical form. They can shapeshift into any form they want. And when they do, they often have deformities. They don't quite get everything right. So, for example, if they're mimicking a human form, they may not get everything exactly perfect. And a hat can cover up a very misshapen head. Many times when these entities are seen without a hat, their heads do look very malformed, kind of weird, rumply, almost like a very weird potato. And so the hat, I think, covers a lot of imperfections. I discovered in the course of my research that a significant number of shadow people experiencers were also ET abductees and contactees as well, but especially abductees. And this information was volunteered. And it was sort of like, oh, by the way, I'm also an ET abductee, if that helps. Well, I noticed a very high incidence of this, higher than you would expect for an overlap of experiences. So I started researching that. And I went back to the respondents in my database to ask them about their ET experiences. I also started including ET abduction and encounter experiences in my questionnaires, and discovered that quite a few people who were shadow people experiencers also were abductees. So going more deeply into that, I discovered, and this took me quite some time to piece together, that the shadow people will often precede or follow an abduction. That is, they'll show up maybe a day or hours before someone is going to be abducted, and they show up in the aftermath of abductions. They don't seem to be figures who are doing the actual abducting. So assuming then that shadow people are Djinn, which I believe that they are, then what are the Djinn doing involved in ET abductions? Are they working with aliens? Are they shape-shifting into aliens? Are they spying on what the aliens are doing? What exactly is their role? And we simply don't know, because none of these entities really sit down and communicate with us to tell us what their master scheme is. We have to do our best to piece it out. But the Djinn, being masterful shapeshifters, they may be interested in the abduction scenario to find out what's going on. Why are aliens interested in us? It may be a way for them to piggyback on the experience because abductions are very terrifying. And what the Djinn want is the human life force, which we give off in a terrific wave of energy when we're terrified. It's the adrenaline fight or flight. And I believe that the Djinn harvest this energy. So they may be piggybacking on the abduction scenario as a way of getting what they want from human beings. The fact that the Djinn are masterful shapeshifters makes it very likely that they play other roles in the abduction experience as well, primarily the reptilian, which would conform with Djinn lore. Their favorite form is the snake, going back to ancient times. And so the reptilian ET may be one of the latest forms of that shapeshifting. And they also have the capability of shape-shifting into all the aliens and beings that we call ETs that we encounter. They could very well masquerade as the Greys. They could masquerade as the praying mantis types. People who have had recollections of their experiences on board ships during their abductions often describe reptilian entities that are hooded and often wearing hats, another characteristic of shadow people, who seem to be in charge of a lot of the abduction experience once they're on board. There are many beings who have a sexual interest in us, and shadow people certainly fall into that category. The Djinn do as well. And if the Djinn are using the shadow person form as one of the main ways that they interact with people, I believe they are, then a sexual interest would be part of that. The Djinn have had sexual relations with human beings going back into antiquities, just like other kinds of beings, including ETs, fairies, even angels. And Djinn-human hybrids are written about in ancient folk tales and lore. Even in biblical terms, it's not specifically stated in the Bible, but King Solomon, who was interested in the Queen of Sheba, she was rumored to be half Djinn. And this would have made her a very powerful person because she would have had the supernatural abilities of the Djinn as well as a human form, being able to exist for long periods of time in our reality. The Nephilim are the offspring of the Watchers, and there's a very short reference to them in the Bible in Genesis. And that reference says that there were beings called the Watchers who were set in the heavens to look after human beings. And while they were doing that, they were also called the sons of God. They took a great sexual interest in women, so they decided to leave their posts and cohabit with women. And in exchange for the sexual favors, they taught secret arts to human beings, supposedly skills and knowledge that human beings weren't yet ready to have. And this made God very angry. And he decided to wipe out all of the impurities by the flood and pretty much start over again. Now, the details of this account are told outside of the Bible. And the book of Enoch has one of the longest descriptions of it. And that story is told that the angels, the archangels, are alarmed by the Nephilim because they're a race of giants and they're cannibalistic, they're bloodthirsty. They're vampiric, just like the Djinn are, vampirizing the life force, only they were doing it literally through blood and flesh. And the angels go to God and report to him that this depravity has spread around the planet. And so that's what causes God to become angry, decide to send floodwaters over the earth. He orders all the Nephilim to be rounded up and locked away, and the Watchers punished as well. Well, apparently not all of them were demolished because there are references later on in the Bible to races of giants that survived on. So remnants of the Nephilim might have lasted into modern times.
Do you think that would account for like the black-eyed kids or black-eyed beings that people report seeing?
I believe that the black-eyed kids and black-eyed people, because we have many cases of black-eyed adults now, that these are another form taken by Djinn. They share a lot of similarities to shadow people. They have a more human-looking appearance. They're not a dark silhouette. And many people mistake them for real people at first until they realize that there's something very strange and off about them. But they also seem to have the purpose of harvesting the life force off human beings, and they just use different tactics to do that. So this would be in keeping with a Djinn tactic. If you were a race of beings that wanted to use human beings as fodder for food or entertainment, you wouldn't want them to get too accustomed to you. If they became used to you in one form, that they would always approach or attack in one way, you'd want to keep your game up by coming up with new strategies. And I think that's what's happened with the black-eyed kids. They're just a new strategy for a very old game. Well, sleep paralysis is a natural part of sleeping, and we can often wake up while we're in that state and feel paralyzed. But I believe that the entities who prey upon us at night when we're vulnerable are very well aware of this state of sleep. And not only do they make use of it, they may be able to mimic it, to cause it to happen at will, or to intensify it. Many of these bedroom invasion encounters occur during these times of paralysis where the individual can't move, they can't cry out, they feel completely helpless, and that really intensifies the fear. They may be aware of presences. They may be able to see a shape moving around the room. They may sense a presence. They may hear sounds like muffled footsteps. They may even smell vile smells. But they feel unable to defend themselves. Beyond the core experience of the bedroom invasion, there are other types of shadow people, and they fall into subsets. There's a subset that is attached to places on the land. I believe that these beings find portals or openings between dimensions. They live in another dimension. They're attached to the earth, but they're not really in our dimension most of the time. But they find places in our reality where the land gives them energy, and that energy enables them to manifest and to interact with human beings. So they may be attached to land. This accounts for some cases where people have no experiences with these beings until they move onto a certain location. And they discover that they're very plagued by these beings. And if they move away, then the experiences stop. There's another subset of shadow people that attaches to individuals. And these seem to be for a variety of reasons. The Djinn have indicated interest in generational bloodlines for their own purposes. And so they follow families, and wherever those family members go, wherever they move, whoever the descendants are, there seems to be a pattern of these kinds of experiences that plague them. Then there are shadow people who attach to individuals on a temporary basis. They're very drawn to negative emotions. And so if a person goes through a lot of upheaval in life, like disease, a financial issue, a divorce, loss of a job, something that really upsets them and turns their personal life into chaos, this is likely to generate depression, unhappiness, a sense of hopelessness, and also anger. All of these emotions are very attractive to the Djinn because they can feed off those emotions. And so individuals going through these kinds of crises may find themselves attacked at night by these literally energy vampires. And when they are able to recover and get their lives back into a better balance, then there's nothing for these beings to come for, and they go away.
So you're saying they feed off all those negative energies?
The shadow people and Djinn feed off negative energy. First of all, they want you to be absolutely terrified, because when you are fearful, there is an automatic response from your body of fight or flight, and it throws off a tremendous amount of adrenaline. And I believe that they know how to harvest this. The same sort of adrenaline is used in negative emotions, that we generate energy in waves, and negative energy has a different vibration to it than a happy, positive energy. And they feed off the negative energy. They don't want to be around happy, well-adjusted people. And so individuals who are having a lot of emotional difficulty may find themselves very vulnerable to these sorts of attacks. Now, there are some individuals who aren't necessarily unhappy, but they seem to have very thin boundaries to the spirit world. That is, their natural defenses are not as strong as most people. They tend to be psychically sensitive. They tend to be what I call trigger people. Wherever they go, if there are spirits of the land, if there are entities who are looking for people to interact, there seems to be a light over these people, and they attract that attention. And so they may be more prone to having encounters with predatory kinds of entities than other people, through no fault of their own, through their actions. They just have very peculiar energy boundaries, and they need to learn how to shore those up. Many entities, including shadow people and the Djinn and ETs, have the ability to invade dreams. And this goes back to ancient times. We are quite vulnerable while we sleep. For one thing, we're usually out of body while we're sleeping, and dreaming is an activity that is out of body. There's something about the change in our state of consciousness that seems to make us more vulnerable to the influences of spirits and other entities. And yes, they can start with, it's literally called dream invasion, and they can start with causing you to have very unpleasant nightmares. And sometimes the nightmares and the bedroom visitations go on simultaneously. It'll be one and the other. There are many ways that people can ward off attacks and even prevent attacks from happening again. However, as effective as the remedies are, they don't work in all cases. And that's because the circumstances are usually unique as to why someone is having these experiences. What works for one person won't necessarily work for another. But one of the most common remedies against repeated shadow person visits is to turn a light on and to leave lights on, and televisions, and also computers. It seems that the generation of electrical fields and electromagnetic fields has a disrupting effect on the entity's ability to manifest and remain in a room or an environment. Sometimes this will keep them away all the time, and other times it'll work for a while and then it won't work anymore. It's almost like they build up a resistance to it. People have also had success with what I call righteous anger. That is summoning up an intense amount of anger about being attacked and ordering the entity away. And anger sends out that kind of anger about you will not violate me or my boundaries. That sends out a wave of energy too. It's like a pulse wave that can repel the entities.
Are you going?
Yeah.
Go on.
Many people have found religious remedies to be very successful as well. They may call upon religious figures, such as in Christianity, calling upon Jesus or Mary or the saints, even calling upon God, reciting certain prayers like the Lord's Prayer. In Islam, there are prayers and verses from the Quran that are cited that are very effective. Every religion, in fact, has prayers and verses from sacred texts and scriptures that repel the unwanted and negative. Those can be quite effective as well. I have found in my experience, consulting on many, many cases over the years, that these sorts of remedies in many cases are temporary. They last for a while, but in cases where the entities are determined to remain in a place or attached to an individual, something else needs to happen. In the case of entities attached to the land, there are usually land energies or currents of energy on a property that are beneficial for them. And sometimes those currents of energy can be altered, even relocated, with the help of a master dowser. It's unusual, but I have seen that occur. Sometimes the entities can be persuaded to go elsewhere or to at least not pester someone if that human being is occupying land that these entities also occupy. There may be some other way of sort of making peace with them. There's a bargaining process. And in the most severe cases, we almost have to treat it like possession, that getting the entity expelled also requires the victim to be able to build up their own boundaries, that they have to shore up their sense of free will, their sovereignty, their sense that no being has a right to violate them in any way or their boundaries in any way. So victims often need a lot of psychological help so that they learn how to push out their own energy in order to repel these beings. I've had many experiences with them since I started researching them in depth. It's inevitable when you research the paranormal that you're going to encounter just about everything you research. And when you're dealing with intelligent entities like the Djinn, who really don't want a light shined on them, they don't want people to know what they're up to, what they're doing, what their modus operandi is, what the remedies are against them. And so researchers like me will get a pushback. Will get unpleasant phenomena. They will attempt to do nightmare invasion. They will attempt to do bedroom invasion. They have many ways of upsetting life through accidents, through misfortune. They can affect people around you as well, your friends, your family. It's like they want to make as much trouble for you as possible so that you are discouraged from further research. I've had also quite a bit of electronic interference. Files that go missing, write up reports and the files will go missing from my computer, or they'll be corrupted so that I can't access them. If I'm on a radio show or giving a lecture, they will disrupt the AV equipment, the broadcast equipment. They'll put static on a line. They make noise. They interfere. And they may also interfere with the other people attempting to interview me as well. I've had stations literally get knocked off the air. I've had radio stations, their whole equipment goes down and they can't get on the air, or hosts that suddenly get sick the day of the show and they can't do it. It's a whole raft of things. I've been through mysterious car accidents. Everybody has accidents. But when things start piling up in a certain way, when you're on a line of research and you have a lot of interrelated phenomena, it's usually the entities kicking up a pushback to attempt to get you to drop your line of research.
Have you physically seen them before?
I have had many cases where I have seen shadow people, and in various forms. I have seen them usually without hats. And I've seen them looking like tall male figures wearing a coat or a cape with a very misshapen head And again, this is in dark silhouette without features. I have seen them as very formidable black pillars. That's quite often how they appear as well. And also as smoke and mist and what I call they can look like tornadoes of swirling ink. Mm-hmm. And I've seen them in that form as well. They have another way of showing up too. And this is described by many experiencers. And it's called the Predator effect because it's named after the famous Predator movies, where the villain, who was an entity, an alien, cloaked itself, had the ability to be invisible. And you would know where it was by the ripples in the air. And so they can be almost completely invisible, but let you know that they're around because they will ripple the air like heat waves. But it's not heat that rises up from the earth and goes up. These are horizontal waves. Many shadow people, another kind of shadow person, many shadow people like to haunt what I call polluted areas. And when I've done paranormal investigation and I've gone to places where the energy is very low and negative because of the things that happen there, like abandoned sanatoriums and prisons where there was a lot of unhappiness, unhappy death, violent death, and a lot of intense anger. It seems to provide a cesspool of energy that attracts these beings. And these places are famous for shadow people. Waverly Hills Sanatorium is one of them. And it is possible to encounter these beings during the course of paranormal investigation.
I don't know if this relates, but ever since I've been starting to research and go in depth and to start this documentary, I've been getting a lot of synchronistic numbers. Like I've been seeing 333 or 111, 1111. Is there a connection to that?
There may be a connection between certain synchronicities and paranormal research. This happens to a lot of us all the time. And one of those synchronicities involves numbers. Now, when I have investigated what I call dark side entities, demons and Djinn and predatory entities that are interested in attacking people, the number 3 will often show up. And in demonology, this is considered to be a hallmark of the presence of demons. It's said to be a mocking of the Holy Trinity. So the number 3 will crop up a lot, or people will find themselves waking up at 3 a.m. or 3:33 a.m. The number 33 will show up. And that's quite common as well. So the number 111 would be a variation of that because it's another, you add 3 ones together and you get the number 3. 1111 seems to be a different kind of synchronicity for people, where you look at a clock or a watch and it's 11 minutes after 11, or there's some other combination that 1111 shows up in. And this is a higher vibration number, and it's tied to kind of a spiritual awakening. And so I've always interpreted that number as something representing the higher forces, the higher energies. It would be more of a protective nature. And believe me, when we're out there investigating the dark side, we need all the protection we can get. It is possible to attach spirits to objects. And of course, in Djinn lore, the most famous of all is the genie in the bottle. And the term genie actually comes from the word jinn. It's a corruption of the name Djinn. Djinn is Arabic for hidden ones, and the Djinn do like to remain hidden. But when the old Arabian Nights folk tales were translated into French and English, the French corrupted the term into genie, and that's how we get genie in the bottle. So all these stories of the genie who lives in the bottle and can be coaxed out by rubbing the bottle or by saying an incantation, and then the genie is obliged to grant wishes. That's one form of this. But spirits, including the Djinn, can be put into pieces of jewelry, like rings or pendants, and their energy is attached or bound to that. And it is done through different kinds of magic rituals. There are many that exist all over the world for this. They can be put into almost any kind of container. And in fact, in exorcisms, they're often trapped into bowls or jars and then covered. And then those things are often buried if the entity has been particularly troublesome. So people can go onto the internet and see all kinds of advertisements for Djinn jewelry. And a lot of these are fake. Nothing's really attached to them. But sometimes people get the real deal. And an entity can come along with a piece of jewelry. And if somebody doesn't know what they're doing, or they inadvertently release this being who's literally been tied to the piece of jewelry, then it can get loose and get out into a home environment or someplace else and create quite a bit of havoc. So when sorcerers do this kind of work, they have to be very knowledgeable, very careful, and it takes a lot of skill and power to do that and to maintain the control over the entity, because they are quite powerful and formidable, and they will find their way out if they can. Worst case scenario. Oh, gosh, so many of them. One of the cases that I studied for years, and I do track some cases for years because they involve ongoing phenomena and, unfortunately, attempts at remedies, concerned a husband and wife who moved onto a piece of property that to them was their dream home. It was a country property, and it happened to be inhabited by one of these entities that had been there a very long time and was not pleased to have people living on the property. All manner of unpleasant phenomena occurred. They had poltergeist phenomena in their homes. Things would go missing. The wife once got herself locked in the basement when no one else was home. A door slammed on her and then mysteriously locked. They had smoke alarms that went off constantly, even when they were removed. They had their batteries removed. And even when they weren't connected to anything in the walls, they had nightmares. They had bed shaking. Their dog became possessed. They had attacking bats. They had stinging bees. They had shadow people. It was an ongoing onslaught all the time. And we would try different kinds of remedies. And there would be peace and quiet for a while, and then the activity would kick up again. Their health was affected. The wife's hair started falling out. She had weight. She lost weight. She got anemic. They started arguing all the time. That's another disruption that can occur in a household. And they were literally beside themselves. Now, we tried different kinds of exorcisms to get rid of this entity. It wasn't interested in striking any sort of deal. It indicated that it didn't like people living on this land, and it was going to pester people until they went away, which seemed to be the case because this property had a lot of turnover, we discovered. So we tried different kinds of religious exorcisms. And what often happened was something would prevent the exorcist from coming on the property. At the last minute, there would usually be an accident, if not to the exorcist, to someone in the family that would cancel the ritual. And this happened more than once. And really serious accidents as well. I mean, very, very harmful to people. This went on for several years. And when it appeared that they were not going to arrive at any lasting remedy, that the remedies would be temporary, they decided to sell the property. And ironically, they had a great deal of difficulty selling it. It was like whatever was there attempted to punish them then for selling the property. And they were finally able to sell it and get peace and quiet. But the activity continues on the property. There is an entity there that is Djinn, that has been there for a very, very long time, and it considers it their property, and it does not like people who come and try to live on it. I run into these cases all the time.
With this Hat Man or Hat Man, what is a story you would know of the Hat Man that was really also intense?
Like a bedroom invasion?
Mm-hmm.
I've collected hundreds and hundreds of stories of Hat Man, shadow person, bedroom invasions. And there are two that I'd like to tell you about. And one involved a single man. Actually, he was a divorced father, and he was in his mid-30s. And he said that he was visited by this Hat Man periodically, and he never knew when it was going to happen. This was part of the terror, this ratcheting up of terror. But he said the attacks would always start the same. He would wake up and he would be paralyzed. He would know what was going on. He could see and he could hear, but he would be unable to move or cry out. And he would know that this thing was outside the house, and that's how the attack would start. He would sense it circling the house, almost like an animal wanting to come in. And then suddenly, he would be aware that it was in the house. So there's, again, a ratchet up of fear. And he knows that this thing is going to get closer and closer and closer to him. And so suddenly it's in the house, and then suddenly it's in the hall, and then suddenly it's at the doorway of his bedroom, and then suddenly it's at the side of his bed. And what would happen in these attacks is that he would be paralyzed and unable to move, and he would be deathly afraid that something horrible was going to happen to him. And just when he thought that was about to happen, boom, the entity would vanish. Well, you would think, well, the guy would think, phew, well, got out of that one. Well, no, because it was very actually calculated psychological terror, because there would be no relief. It would be, is it coming back? Did it really go away? Is it coming back? When is it going to come back? And what is it going to do? So he lived in this ongoing state of fear, having these experiences. Well, one night, this thing showed up. And the pattern started with outside the house and inside the house, closer and closer. Only this time, the man was sleeping with his bedroom door closed. And he had the crazy idea in his head while he's laying there paralyzed, that somehow this entity, who can go through walls and go through matter, but he has this crazy idea in his head that because his bedroom door is closed, it's not going to be able to come in. And he thinks, it's not going to be able to come in because my door is closed. And as soon as he has that thought, the Hat Man thinks back to him telepathically, well, your son's door is open. And he knows instantly that this being is making a beeline for where his 8-year-old son is sleeping. He's paralyzed. He can't do anything. He can't get up. He can't call out. All he can do is pray, oh, please, not my son, not my son, not my son. And fortunately, nothing happens to his son. But he said that this Hat Man was so malevolent. He said the malevolence in this being was so extreme. He said it's absolute evil. It's the most evil thing that I have ever encountered. And that was the most terrifying experience he had ever been through. Now, I lost touch with him. I have no idea if he was ever able to break this syndrome, or if these sorts of attacks continued, and if they started in on his son. There was one other that I found to be very terrifying, just reading about it. And it came from a young man who was a professional wrestler. And he said that one night he wakes up in this state of paralysis, and there's this Hat Man, this shadow person in his bedroom. And it's generating this hostility, this evil energy. And it comes and jumps on him while he's in bed, and he's able to start wrestling with it. And he said that this being tussled with him, and it had tremendous strength. And he said, I was in the fight for my life. I was never so afraid. This being had physicality, and it was superior in strength to him. And he was a professional wrestler, so he was in the peak of health and strength. And he said at a point where he thought that he was going to be exhausted and have to give up, he was able to throw this being off, and it disappeared. But he said, I've never been so frightened in my entire life. He said, I don't know what it was, why it attacked me, but I really thought I was going to be dead. It's not unusual for skeptics to say that people are having fantasy experiences, or that this is just the remnants of a nightmare, that people were still dreaming a nightmare and they thought they were awake if it's a bedroom invasion. And in the course of my work as a paranormal researcher and investigator, I've never felt obliged to try to convince skeptics, because many of them are not going to be convinced. But I'm convinced, because we have too many of these experiences that fit the same patterns. Thousands and thousands of them, just the tip of the iceberg. People all over the world who never met each other, never knew anything about shadow people or the Hat Man or the Djinn, are shocked to discover that they are having similar experiences to encounters that have been described throughout the ages. So the experiential evidence speaks for itself. And for many skeptics, that's still not enough. They will not be convinced until they too have their own experience.
All right, that'll conclude the interview. Thank you very much.
Okay, we're back, people. That was Rosemary Ellen Guiley. What an incredible conversation. Really, what that was some of her key points, some of the key things that she focuses on in her talks, in her books, in her lectures. There were different subjects between the breakpoints that she pivoted to and segued into. And that was a great introduction to her energy, what she's about, and the things that she's learned. ET abductions, shadow people, Djinn. Like what? Okay, so there are these other energies, these other entities that feed on the life force, she's saying. There's a vampirism of the life force happening. It's around the energy of fear. And these entities essentially eat the energy of fear. So that energy has to be avoided when you're dealing with these entities. Again, this was just like scratching the surface. We were surfing the surface of a lot of different deep topics that you can unpack. You can have an episode about each one of these topics. But the Djinn, right? Not angels, not demons, but a lower astral entity feeding on this energy. They can follow bloodlines, she's saying, follow places. They can stay with the land, and they can terrorize people. It is really strange and interesting when you really think about the intricate layers of the design of multidimensional reality. There's so much going on. You have these really positive things. You have these big angelic energies, the highest frequencies, and then the polarity. You have these other entities. Why does it all exist within this realm in this way? That's what we talk about on this show. That's some of the things we focus on, right? We focus on that, but wow, I don't know. It's all really strange. Predatory entities was the word that she used, and I'm going to adopt that now. Because there are predatory entities. People talk about not just demons and demonic possession, which way back we had an exorcist on, a Catholic exorcist, who told his stories about his exorcisms. But there are other predatory entities, such as these Djinn. I will tell you, people, that I myself, Jake Weaver, did have experiences with what I would call Djinn and ghosts. Two things she said in this recording that really triggered some memories for me was when she was talking about how lights ward off entities. Now, I grew up, or I should say, I spent about 6 years of my childhood in a haunted house, a very haunted house. There were all kinds of strange phenomena. Now, looking back as an adult, it seemed poltergeisty. It wasn't too intense, closing doors, locking things, much like she was talking about with what that family was facing. But ultimately, the lights and the televisions, what I determined on my own as a child was that having my television on, something about the frequencies, seemed to ward them off, and I could actually get sleep. Because if you're stuck in a haunted house and you just got to deal with it, people need sleep. So I learned as a kid on my own to turn on my CRT television. This is before flat screens. Something about the frequencies it was emitting pushed those entities away. I've only heard one other person say that in my life much later. And the way she explained it shows us that many people have experienced this. So, wow, that was really incredible just from my own perspective. Like literally Jake Weaver right here. I wish Bryn was with me to hear this, but she'll listen to this episode. She talked about how some of the ghosts are like tornadoes of swirling ink. Now, the ghost entities that I've experienced in my life, that's what they look like, swirling ink. Now, I was using a term myself, and I was calling it liquid smoke. Seeing a figure, a face, the perception of a being within the liquid smoke as it's swirling, but she's saying swirling ink. Whew. So that blew me away because I've literally experienced that myself. The Hat Man. I don't have any experience with the Hat Man, but I will tell you that there was that quarterback who played for the American football team, the Green Bay Packers. And he talked about how he was taking ayahuasca. And after his ayahuasca trips, he now sees the Hat Man. The Hat Man. And this was back in 2022. I remember that. So that might have been the first time I personally heard of the Hat Man. Shadow people, of course, many metaphysical spiritual people have been talking about shadow people for a very long time. And I personally have seen those shadow people less interfacing, more just as like animated silhouettes. You can sense the consciousness, but it's so minimal. The Djinn, these other entities, these evil pranksters in a way, and I don't mean prankster like psychedelic, like almost like the tricksters of Native American lore. Just really nasty, nasty energies. But I learned later in life, especially with dealing with dream invasions, where you're having this like lucid dream and all of a sudden one of these entities busts in, tries to make you very scared, and then of course eats that energy. You have to stand up to them. You're in the dream world. I remember when I had that experience for the first time. I ran this dream I was having. It was very lucid. I was having a lucid dream. This entity burst into the dream. This has happened to me probably hundreds of times in my life, but we'll just talk about this one instance, one time. I'm not trying to make this all about me, but there's a lot of reflection I'm having right now. And I had absolutely zero fear because honestly, after my own experience and everything I've learned throughout my entire life, I know to stand up to these entities because they do feed on fear. I've heard other people say similar things in different ways. And here was this entity busting into my lucid dream. And I was very annoyed and angry in my dream. I ran towards the entity with its evil demonic face, alien demonic face, trying so hard to be so intimidating, but you can't scare me. I ran up to this entity, and in this dream state, I grabbed the entity, grabbed its arm, and it melted, and the face went from the demonic, terrible, intimidating face, which was, of course, meant to invoke fear. It changed into this very scared, sad, frightened child. Not a human child, but just a very sad entity. Like, oh, don't hurt me. I knew it's all a facade. You have the power. I have the power. We have the power. We serve the divine. We serve God. We serve Source. We're out there, love and light. We're unstoppable. When you have that energy, that love, when you are connected to Source, you have that with you. Shouldn't be afraid of anything. There is nothing to fear. If you are aligned with that power, you're unstoppable. It's not about you. I'm not saying you're unstoppable like ego, like you're super person. You know? I'm saying that power is the all. So if you're truly aligned with it, and that's your motivating force in your actions, decisions, considerations, relationships, and everything, and how you even approach these dream dimensions, then they can't stop you. They can't hurt you. They can do nothing to you. Anytime. So, wow. Rosemary Ellen Guiley. What an incredible life. Find her book. She has so many. And check out her website. Still there. visionaryliving.com. What a goddess. What an amazing lady. She's over there working with those entities, laughing, smiling, understanding where we're headed, and knowing that all of us doing that action, making it happen, is going to get us there. And thank you, Rosemary, for doing your incredible work. You did so much great work. And you're still doing it by being a part of this show, by being a part of Midnight on Earth. You're still teaching people. We're enlightening people still. Thank you, Rosemary. Everyone, check out her books. Check out her websites. Think about what she said, these entities. It's a lot to unpack. It was very short compared to some of our other lectures, but at the same time, it was like very powerful. So think about what she said and realize that there's so much research out there into each one of those things. Take the deep dive into her books, everything. And I also want to thank the original interviewer, whoever interviewed Rosemary. I wasn't able to identify that, but thank you for that. Thank you for preserving her knowledge. Deeply appreciate it. We all appreciate it. I found this recording online. And of course, thank you for listening. Thank you for being a part of this podcast, for being part of this audience as it grows every day all over the world. Thank you for your energy. And we will see you next week. Midnight on Earth.